time, yeah, making a difference, one cup at a time. Tea time. So be sure to grab your tea, grab a seat, and tune in to Miss Liz. Tea time, making a difference, one cup at a time. Tea time, yeah. Tea time, time.
Well, good afternoon and welcome back to Tea Time. That's right, we are back for the afternoon tea. We were here this morning with Julie. Now we're here this afternoon with Brett, and this evening we'll be here with Marianne. That's how we roll. We do 3 live shows each and every Thursday on Tea Time with Miss Liz. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. Go over to Miss Liz's YouTube channel, give that a quick subscribe. Check me out on all the podcast apps and give that a quick subscribe and follow. And you can catch all of these tea times at your own time and pace. So if something is a little too long for you sometimes in a day, you can take it and you can do 15 minutes, 20 minutes and come back and enjoy them. Also, I have the incredible co-founder and CEO of Features. That's right. We're going to be talking about advertisement this afternoon. We're going to get all of that good stuff out there and how he does all of this. I checked out that website last night and I got a little involved. So I did the 3 questions and I think it's pretty cool. So we're going to be checking that out. And yeah, I do all of my homework with all of my guests and I do check out their platforms and support them. So a little bit about Brett and the disclaimer. We're going to get all of that out there and then we're going to get Brett in here and he's going to spill you a good TEA this afternoon with all of you guys out there. Disclaimer for Miss Liz's live tea time shows. Miss Liz, myself, is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment, please grant StreamYard permission to see your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that the content brought forward for any tea time show hosted by myself, Miss Liz, is always brought forward in good faith. However, it may bring forward dialogues and opinions that are not representative of my platform. The facts and information are perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All tea time guests and audience participants are responsible for using their good judgment in taking any action that may relate to the discussion. The content brought forward may include discussions for some where they may be emotionally at risk. It is significant to know that this show is engaging in discussion forums only to offer inspire awareness and connection and is not providing therapeutical advice. If you have any questions about the disclaimer or the panelist discussion, you may freely contact me, Miss Liz, through my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com. Moving forward, should you choose to voluntarily participate in today's show in any aspect, I myself, Miss Liz, welcomes you. And should you decide that this show is not made for you at this time, I respect those wishes and will see you at a later show at a later date and time. Again, all tea times this year in 2023 are done on Thursday, 10, 3, and 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If it's not a Thursday, it's a surprise guest or a returning guest or a rescheduled show. And that is done on a Monday and Tuesday. So now let me give you a little bit on Brett. Who is Brett? Well, Brett Farmiloe, I hope I'm saying it right. We even practiced it before he came out, is the founder and CEO of Features. He's a platform that connects subject matter experts with top publishers to increase their exposure and create quality, ready-to-publish Q&A content. Previously, Brett founded and ran a digital marketing agency for 10 years before a successful acquisition. He's a published author, dad of 3, and once helped the actor Hugh Jackman launch a coffee company that was eventually acquired by Keurig. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but I'm going to get Brett in here and we're going to do some tea time. So let me get Brett in here. Welcome, Brett.
What's up, Miss Liz? Thanks for having me.
I told you it'd be a few minutes. I just like to ramble away and get all that good stuff out there.
Got the
So,
disclaimer out the door. We could hop to it now. Have some tea.
so Brett, I'm going to start off my show like I started off with everybody. So, who was Brett as a little guy, and who is Brett now?
Brett as a little guy is very similar to who Brett is now. Brett is a little guy at 10 years old, decided to blaze a trail from my friend's house to my house, and somehow we convinced our parents to give us machetes and blaze a trail through the woods. And at the end of the day, we were very happy with what we've accomplished. And then the next morning, we woke up fully covered in poison oak, eyes swollen shut, and an incredible adventure at 10 years old. And today, as an entrepreneur, very much still blazing trails, having feelings of triumph and feelings of, oh my gosh, I've got a full-bodied case of poison oak and I can't see out of my right eye. So I think that very similar little Brett and big Brett are today.
So the Brett just likes to dig in and get himself into a little trouble.
I like to go on adventures, and sometimes those adventures have different outcomes than intended at the start of the journey. So, for both better and worse.
You know what, Brett? I'm looking at you right now and I feel like I'm talking to my cousin Tony. You look identical to my cousin. Oh my goodness.
Bring him on out the backstage, cousin Tony.
I'm going to have to send you a picture of my cousin. I swear to God, I was just like, what? Tony's here?
Sounds good. Shout out to cousin Tony.
I guess it's the beard. It's something. I was just like, who am I sitting here with? So I just kind of whoop over my head. So Brett, I want to talk about features. How did you get the name Features?
Yeah, so it's featured.com. Got featured because when we were thinking about our platform, which we connect subject matter experts with top publishers to increase their exposure online. Essentially how it works is a publisher like Fast Company will post a question on featured.com because they want to receive a full-length article that features expert insights. And so that question gets posted, vetted experts can then answer that question and then get their insights featured in the article that's going to be eventually published on Fast Company. And so when we were thinking about what's a descriptive word that helps really describe this connection that we're making between subject matter experts and publishers, featured was a word that came to mind. And so we went to look to see if the .com was available. Of course, it's not. Every one-word.com that exists out there is taken. So we submitted our information for consideration. 3 years passed by. The owner of feature.com had reached out to us saying that he was liquidating his domain portfolio and would be interested. And we essentially just negotiated the acquisition of the domain. So previously, we were under a domain called Turkle.io, which to us meant the word Turkle meant to give voice to the uncelebrated, which is really at the core of our platform. We think that everyone has expertise to share and just doesn't have a platform to share it. And so Turkle was our operation for many years. And then we navigated over to featured.com and rebranded about a few months ago. And so that's basically how we got the domain.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And like I said, before you came live, I checked out your platform last night and I think it's really cool the way that you guys have that. And then you submit your answers and then it gets looked over. And then if it qualifies, it actually gets featured onto those platforms, correct?
Yeah, so when I was running a marketing agency over the last 10 years, we serviced more than 500 small business owners. And the thing that we learned is that small business owners typically have very limited resources in order to get their brand and their business out there, but they have an abundance of knowledge to share about their business. We were working with clients like a trenchless pipelining company or a specialized lawyer out in Seattle. And every one of these people just doesn't get enough questions to answer in regards to their professional expertise. And so what Featured does is it really just helps connect the right questions with the right experts to bring out that new knowledge and then give that knowledge over to publishers who do want to feature that content. So that's essentially the premise of the platform.
Oh wow. Yeah, because when I was checking the questions out last night, there's some really incredible questions out there. I highly recommend everybody go and check it out. Like, you know, I don't know if you can see me glitching, but
I can
my
definitely see you glitching.
my camera is kind of doing something a little weird over here. I'm not sure what's going on. I hope I don't lose it. Um, but if I go black, just keep talking. I'm gonna figure it out though.
Sounds good.
You'll just have
It's probably cousin Tony messing with the cords or whatever.
right. He's like, no, it's supposed to be me here. Uh, so, Brett, I want to get into the advertisements and press releases and all that. Do you guys do that as well, or do you guys carry that off to a different department or a different organization?
Currently, we don't offer the ability to do press releases. We're just kind of a one-trick pony, and that all we do is question and answer articles. So at this time, we don't do press releases. In the future, we may begin to offer that, but really our whole goal and mission is just to connect those subject matter experts with publishers.
Well, I'm still here. I'm just a little dark.
Sounds good.
Uh, I'm not sure what happened here. My camera went dark. We're supposed to be talking in the dark over here. So I want to get into the marketing. So, Brett, if anybody would like to market with Feature, how does that work?
Yeah, so it's really simple. The way that featured.com works is you can sign up for, I think that maybe I'm just doing solo now. But anyways, um, I think Miss Liz disappeared for a second, so I'll just go into how featured.com works. So basically, you could sign up for Featured at no cost. You could answer 3 questions a month. And then if you want a unlimited submissions, then you could upgrade to one of our paid plans. So basically, the reason why you would do unlimited submissions is to increase your exposure online. But other than that, that's basically how Featured works. And this is a little awkward now that the host is gone and I'm running Miss Liz tea time over here. So special shout out to anyone who's listening. If you're in the chat here, then feel free to drop a comment. Otherwise, wherever you're at, I'm out here in Scottsdale, Arizona. As Miss Liz mentioned, I'm an author of a book. Wrote that book after traveling across the country multiple times in an RV, interviewing people about their career paths. Interviewed more than 300 professionals, went to 38 states. And really the takeaway from that road trip was the fact that people don't have enough of an outlet to share their meaningful expertise and experiences that they've accumulated in their life. And so that's very much at the core of the platform with featured.com is you could show up, answer questions that pertain to your expertise and kind of leave a legacy and share your knowledge. So that's something interesting about me. And then I'm also a dad of 3. I'm about that minivan life. So anyways, this is super awkward now that there's not a host. But we'll give Miss Liz a couple minutes. She's coming back. Here we are. Miss Liz, I was just giving a shout out to, I took over the hosting capabilities for a second there, and I just started spouting off on some different stuff. So I'm glad you're back.
That is good. No, I think my USB on this side kicked out on my machine, so I went on the other side. I'm really quick on that stuff, and I thank you for taking over because sometimes sometimes the host just needs to skip out and skip back in. So
A tea time out.
right, take a time out. So Brett, I want to talk about influencers. Do you work with influencers?
What is an influencer, Miss Liz?
Exactly. That's a good answer because I want to know what you think an influencer is.
I've always thought that my wife, who has like 60 Instagram followers, is an influencer. There's micro influencers, there's large scale influencers. Everyone has influence, I think. And I think it's just a natural human tendency to be influenced by other human beings. So do we work with influencers? Yes. Everyone, in my perspective, has influence and has expertise. And especially when you combine those two things together, then, that's a really powerful combination. So I would say that's actually really at the core of what we're doing at Featured is, we're tapping into people who have expertise and then we're letting their insights influence others in terms of thinking differently on a certain topic or gaining an additional perspective, about a particular question.
I love that answer. And the reason I asked you that was because a lot of people think that influencers are all the ones that have the big followers, have the big numbers. You know, uh, everyday person can be an influencer, like you said, like your wife, like, our neighbor. It depends on what you're looking for and what you're in, like what you want to bring into your life and what you're looking to influence you, because you can influence somebody and then that person influences the next person and the next person. I really want to take away from, not take away, but I want to have everyone understand that influencers can be anybody. you know they don't have to have the big names, they don't have to have those screen A-listers names that that work hard and have gotten their way up there. We want to have everyday people that come to the table and say, you know what, I have a voice. And I love that you have um, to give voice to celebrate, because that gives other people the opportunity to bring their voice to the table and share. And with your business called Featured, a lot of people came to me and they asked me, okay, so do I get featured in magazines? Do I get featured in newspapers? Do I get featured online? Like, where do I get featured?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when you log into featured.com and you go to the questions dashboard to look at all the different opportunities that there are, there's a source right next to all those different questions. And so you'll be able to see essentially where you're submitting your insight and where that will ultimately be published. But I would say for the most part, the places that you're getting published are media companies like Fast Company. They're brands with blogs like, for example, American Express or GoDaddy, or they're member-driven organizations like the Society for Human Resource Management, or Arizona State University, that are really, trying to tap into their member base or professions or their alumni. And so it's a wide variety of places. And so it almost goes back to your previous comment about who's an influencer. Well, who's a publisher today? Like, a publisher is almost anyone with a website that wants to, create content and to feature, unique insights. And so what we're really doing is we're tapping into those people with websites, which there's more than 250 million, active sites that could be considered publishers. And on the flip side of that, you have, all these people with expertise that want a meaningful outlet to share that expertise. So it's making that connection a little easier.
So, Brett, you just brought up publishers, because on your website you have experts and you have publishers. So, what's the difference?
An expert is someone who's typically answering a question and offering their expertise, and their main motivation is they want to, not only share their knowledge but increase their exposure online if you care about, that benefit. And then a publisher is someone with a website, someone who wants to feature and create content with sometimes the main purpose of driving and increasing web traffic. And so our content is a way to do that, where we're filling in the gaps for a given question, and then, essentially helping that website create visibility for themselves for that particular topic.
So, we have a question here for you, Brett. Do you guys help with advertisement?
We don't. So when I used to run my digital marketing company, we would run Google ads and Facebook ads and, LinkedIn ads for particular clients. I would say that's typically, something that a marketing agency would be responsible for. Our platform does not do any kind of advertisements, although we are considering that in the future, mainly through sponsored answers. And so essentially, if you wanted to appear on a website or an article that has traffic, you have expertise to share, you could essentially, sponsor some real estate on there with your insight so that you're appearing in that regard. But currently, we don't have any way to advertise businesses outside of the organic way of placing experts in articles.
So, you're talking about sponsors. So, can people sponsor Featured?
Currently, no. In the future, that's definitely on the roadmap for us. If you look at, some of other websites that are out there, specifically, question and answer websites, that's one of their monetization methods, is that you could sponsor an answer or sponsor an ad on their site and appear in a specific forum or discussion thread. And so we very much think that that's a good model for us in the future. So that's something that we'll be planning to pursue.
So, your former job before, Brett, was digital marketing, correct?
Correct. Even before that, I was an accountant. I was My first job out of school was being a corporate auditor, looking at financial statements, and so search engine optimization was a natural gravitation for a former auditor who loves numbers. surprisingly very, very data driven in terms of identifying proper keywords to target, looking at keyword difficulty scores, looking at, from an advertisement perspective, what's the expected cost per click on a certain keyword. So very much get to geek out on, the numbers side without having to worry about being an auditor and, checking out financial statements.
So can we talk a little bit about keywords? Because I want to understand keywords a little bit better.
I could talk about keywords forever, Miss Liz. Let's hop into
it. So what is the understanding of keywords? Is it with the hashtags, or is that completely separate?
So when I mention keywords, I'm mainly referring to search engines. And
Okay.
so a keyword is whatever someone is going to type into Google or Bing or whatever your preferred search engine is to discover information. And so there's certain things that people will search more often. And as a search engine marketer, your job is essentially to find those frequently searched terms that pertain to your business and to create content or create information that helps satisfy the intent of that person's query. And so an example of a keyword would be something like search engine optimization services, or whatever your service or product is. And you could identify, essentially, here's this top level keyword that is an umbrella type of statement. So like if we're sticking down search engine optimization, that's your umbrella statement. But then there's all these other offset or related keywords that you can target that are things like questions that your prospective customers might be asking, like what's the value of a backlink, or other closely related services. Instead of SEO services, you might be looking for something like technical SEO services or content creation services. And so you're basically putting yourself in the customer's perspective, thinking about what kind of things that they're going to search engines to search for to discover businesses and services like the one that your company offers.
Well, that's pretty cool. Like, I always wonder, because I have a lot of people that come to me, Miss Liz, you need to change your keywords. And I'm like, my keywords, what's wrong with my keywords? So should we change our keywords up? Like if we have a website, do you recommend that we change keywords up, or is there a site we could check for keywords? Or
yeah, so the easiest place to look for keywords is just go to your homepage, hover over the little browser tag up there, and typically that's what your target keyword is. And so if it says something like home or welcome, then that's an opportunity for you to update your keywords to be more descriptive, and then to better match what people are searching for and what your website's all about. So in terms of sites that you would go to check out other keywords to identify, Google has a free tool called Google. I think it's Google Keyword Planner, and it's through Google Ads. But basically, you could just type in specific keywords, and you could figure out how often those keywords searched, and what's the expected cost per click that's associated with those keywords. So not to confuse you or your listeners too much, but essentially the higher that an advertiser is willing to pay to have their ad appear for a keyword, likely the more that keyword will produce results for your business, because advertisers are willing to pay a premium for appearing for that keyword. And then if they're out there paying $10 per click, then chances are they're seeing conversions from that keyword. So versus something that might be like 10 cents for a click might not really be converting for that advertiser. So their willingness to pay is much more down. And so the whole purpose of keywords is to attract customers that are ultimately going to purchase and buy. And so you want to really devote your homepage keyword and some of your services pages to target those high value keywords that are going to produce for you. And one clarification point as well is there's a big difference between search engine optimization and then paid advertising. So when we're talking about keywords, there's two different ways that you could essentially target them. One is just go to Google Ads and put in your keyword and pay for every click that gets generated from that ad. And then the other side of this is search engine optimization, which is organic. You're not paying for each click. Essentially, your goal is to create really great content and to have that appear in search engines. In order to do that, you have to outrank competition. There's a whole lot of other stuff that goes into it. But ultimately, if you're successful in that endeavor, then you're not paying for each click. And so that's the two differences, two different ways you could work with keywords.
So a lot of people talk about advertisements. So would feature, is it part of advertisement? Like when we answer the questions, submit the questions. Uh, so is it some form of advertising yourself? Like,
I'd say that it's a form of building visibility
okay.
and enhancing your exposure, which I guess, depending on your definition of advertising, could fall into that category. However, when I think of advertising, I think of paying for placement and paying, to get your billboard up or to get your Google ad live. And that's not our business model. Our business model is a freemium B2B SaaS business model where marketers can pay to answer unlimited questions on our platform. And so our free plan, you could answer up to 3 questions a month at no cost. And then if you really want to increase your exposure online, you could pay a subscription to answer unlimited questions on our platform. And so is that advertising? Uh, Not really, but kind of. It's kind of a gray area. It has the same kind of objective, but it has a different form of monetization that's typically associated with it.
So let's talk about monetization.
All right, I could talk all day about that too.
I'm going to just hit you up with a bunch of questions because I have a bunch of people that are asking about advertising and marketing and features and magazines and stuff like that. But monetization, like for platforms like myself, how does that work?
Well, I think it just goes back to what you're selling. What kind of products and services are being offered on your platform, and what's the best business model to support it. So, for us, like I said, it's a software as a service for our monetization, meaning that we monetize from monthly subscriptions where people are willing to pay for whatever that software looks like. There's many different things that you know ways that you could monetize. I think that one of the most interesting things that I'm currently thinking about is how to monetize innovation and really putting the price around the product versus the opposite, where typically someone will come up with a business idea and create the business and create the product and create the service and then attach a price to it afterwards, versus thinking about what's the problem that you're solving for a customer and what are they willing to pay for you to solve that problem, and then designing the solution so that you could seamlessly fit within their willingness to pay and make sure that you can make a profit from that. So I think that that's kind of a high level view of how to think about monetization.
So we have a question here. What does monetization mean? I know what it means. I know what you know, but this person doesn't.
Monetization means making money, making some dollars or euros or wherever you're at.
So we have another question, Brett, for you. Does Future work globally or just within United States?
A lot of our publishers are based in the U.S. However, I would say that our base of experts is global. So no matter where you are in the world, you have some perspective that you could offer and share, and there's plenty of opportunities to do that on Featured.
So we have a comment here. This helps bridge my generational gap. Call it granny in
Ineptitude.
if you want, but this is interesting and informative. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that in regards to the generational gap, it's one thing that I really, really enjoy about what we're doing at Featured is that no matter how old you are or no matter where you're at in life, you have something to offer. Daily, we see some submissions from people. Most notably, a couple days ago, there was like this 94-year-old architect in New York who had acquired, more than 50 different like awards and accolades, in the course of his career. And we sent him an email. It's like, hey, here's this architecture question. Would you mind answering? And he loved it. He's like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Like, no one asked me for this stuff. Like, I'm very far past my prime in my career, but yet that person's insights were just incredible. And on the flip side of that, you have someone who might just be almost graduating college and has incredible perspective on what it's like to graduate in 2023 and like what does employment look like and what are the employment trends that are happening. So like that's the really unique thing about what we're doing is that if you look at the output of the content that we have, typically there's an introduction, and then the rest of the article are 4 to 8 sentence insights from 10 different experts that collectively offer up this really unique perspective about a given topic. So, regardless of the generational gaps that always exist in the workforce, I think that collectively we could piece together some really great wisdom.
Well, I'm guessing that you guys work with a lot of different ranges of generations as well, right? So you get like the millenniums, you get the Generation X, you get the boomers, you get them all, right?
One thing I was saying when you took your tea time out was I was going back to
When I had my time out.
yeah. One thing I was saying, because I didn't know what to talk about, was in the snippet here it says Brett Farmiloe, author, and so I talked about how I right at 22 years old was coming out of school, didn't really know what to do, created a career education website where myself and 3 friends traveled around the country in an RV to interview people about their career paths, and we documented all of their stories on a website for college students to turn to say, hey, how do I become like Michael Jordan shoe designer, or how do I become a CEO of a company, or how do I become, a goat farmer? All of these different, stories. And the thing, we traveled 38 states, did 2 road trips, interviewed more than 300 people, 16,000 miles. The thing that I learned is that people don't have a meaningful outlet to share their life's experiences and expertise. And so why else would like the CEO of a major company spend an hour with 4 random straggly college kids in an RV and share their life's accumulations and secrets, in that regard? As people just don't get the microphone enough. Not everyone could be here on Miss Liz Tea Time and talking about the stuff that's super important to them. So, and at the same time, it's super important to share that stuff. That's like, kind of what the meaning of life is like you go on this journey and you get these great insights along the way. And it's a travesty if you don't get to share that stuff and you just, carry that on. So that's the cool part, I think, about humanity, is that everyone recognizes that, hey, I wouldn't be where I am today if it weren't for so-and-so helping guiding me on that path. And I have an obligation to give back so that the next person can, find their way in their journey. So that's the really cool about, the thing that I learned on that road trip, is that people have this natural, ability to say, hey, I'd be willing to share, what I've accumulated, with the purpose of, paying it forward.
And that's exactly why I do tea time, is because we don't get the mic enough, and that person that has an incredible story doesn't get seen, doesn't get heard. I'm there saying, hey, come over here and have a cup of tea with me, and it's not like I snipped out and took my tea time at the wrong time, because I missed a lot of cool stuff here.
Well, it was short, but now you're up to speed.
So you wrote the book at 22, or you traveled at 22?
Traveled at 22, turned 23, and then I think I started writing the book, shortly thereafter. I wrote the whole book, and when it was complete, I threw it in the trash and started again. Basically, because the output of that book wasn't in line and didn't realize the full potential of what it could be, and so I actually started over and ended up ultimately creating a book that we really loved. So the first one was a narrative from me. The second one was a narrative from all the people that we interviewed, and it was basically just dicing down the commentary into commonalities and of the people that we interviewed, and then just taking the best quotes from all of these interviews and putting it into kind of a coffee table style book, and letting the images of our trip speak for itself. So really cool trip, obviously very foundational in terms of how I think about life and what we're doing today.
So where can people get this book? Because I didn't find that book. I didn't do my homework
And
enough.
I only printed out 1,000 copies. They arrived, and you would be very surprised how much space 1,000 books takes up.
Oh, I know. I got books all over.
So I don't know if you could find the book anywhere other than maybe Amazon, picking up a used copy, somewhere. But it's called Pursue the Passion, and it's blue with an RV on it. So. And I'm not bearded in those photos.
So is that the RV that you guys rode in, or?
That was the RV that we rode in. Yep. There was actually 2 RVs. The first summer was a RV that, if you've seen the Breaking Bad series, there was an RV that looked exactly like that RV in Breaking Bad, and that was a bad RV. It broke down quite often. And then, I quit my job shortly thereafter and got another road trip together, and ended up getting a corporate sponsor for the second trip. They bought us an RV that would make it around the country, that was reliable, and that's the RV that's on the cover of the book.
Well, that sounds like an interesting adventure for sure. My goodness. So you got sponsored, so you got to drive around and interview people and have fun and get to. Did you try new foods and cultures and stuff like that as well?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it was all American based, so just 38 states, and it was like one of my first real forays into like startup life, because we were trying to sell sponsorships, and that is not a very easy pitch. When you're thinking about, oh, will you sponsor 4 recent college grads to go around the country in an RV? There's typically, like, you have to find a really unique suitor for that. So it took us about 3 months. We did find a food sponsor to give us essentially an unlimited supply of Hot Pockets. And we proceeded to eat Hot Pockets for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 30 days straight, to save money, to try to, bootstrap this endeavor. And so when you talk about, hey, did you get to try new foods? Yes, we did, because it was, if you've seen the movie Super Size Me, where the guy eats McDonald's for 30 days and ends up in the hospital, that was exactly like it was eating Hot Pockets for 30 days. So we ended up throwing away the Hot Pocket vouchers, said never to eat a Hot Pocket again. I think that maybe at this point, it's 17 years later, I've never eaten another Hot Pocket since. But it ultimately allowed us to come to find a good sponsor, and then experience life.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you if you ever ate a hot pocket again.
No, no, sodium
No.
sweats are not for me.
So I want to get into your tea. So if I give you the letters TEA, what words would you give me today for your tea time?
TEA. Well, I think that you kind of spoiled it a little bit, saying that it didn't have to exactly be TEA. But my T would essentially go back to this road trip we're talking about in terms of passion. I think that the thing that I learned from a lot of people that I spoke with is that whatever you're doing, make sure that you're passionate about it, and because that's ultimately what's going to pull you through to success. So I would say passion. The second thing I would say in relation to profession is knowledge. So I think that most people believe that all the answers are readily accessible in a search engine, and the reality is that most of our knowledge isn't online yet. And so I'm really passionate about bringing new knowledge and unlocking new knowledge to improve the information that the world can access. So knowledge would be, that second acronym. And then the third one is just family. Like, I'm a dad of 3. I got a beautiful wife. My weekends are dominated by a minivan and wherever we're going. So, I think that those are the 3 things that really drive me in life.
So are you just a van guy in particular, like
I
RVs
can't
and
get away. Can't get away. Look, hey, if you got 3 kids and you can press a button to open a door and they jump in, that is the biggest value proposition that I've ever seen, from a family person. So minivans are what's up. RVs, I probably won't own one again. I'm a 3-time RV owner, but the biggest surprise, honestly, is that you can have a regular driver's license and hop in an RV and drive it. Like, that's a little scary.
Have you ever thought of turning a bus into an RV?
I would never live in an RV or go on a bus again.
So no pocket pizza pockets.
No hot
No,
pockets, no
no
hot
hot
pockets,
pockets,
no
and
RVs. That part of my life has flown by me.
so Brett, you mentioned something. Your second word, you said knowledge. I want to talk about that word knowledge because a lot of people don't understand that knowledge is not just the search engine, not it's not just at our fingertips. We really got to push ourselves and encourage ourselves to dig a little deeper. If we don't find it here, go to a book, go to a source or a service, or like reach out. So for you to get knowledge out there, what resources do you think that we should be engaging in more?
Well, I think that you learn through creation sometimes, and so there's a good practice to get into of sharing knowledge and whatever that outlet is, whether that's a personal blog that you have on a website, whether that's, something like Featured and sharing answers on the go, or it's just like saying yes to certain opportunities and, showing up and sharing what you know. So I think that's the first part of knowledge is you already have some, and you can create more knowledge through sharing knowledge. So that's one. And then in terms of other, like acquiring new knowledge, there's just endless amounts of opportunity if you're curious enough to, go surround yourself with the right things. So I think that it goes back to what's the passion of the day, and to follow that, and to, look to uncover some different things that might exist.
I want to talk about passion because we don't see a lot of passion in a lot of fields and a lot of jobs. A lot of people are just doing the 9 to 5, they're struggling, you know. So how do we get passion into people, Brett?
Um, it's a good question. I've obviously given a lot of thought. You know, I think that even if you're in a 9 to 5, you could be super passionate about it. Like, I think that the ultimate thing about passion is just, do you care? Like, do you care enough to get through the lows? Like, how do you what motivates you to keep pushing? And so, if you're in it, there's nothing wrong with 9 to 5. And like, if you're in a 9 to 5, I think that you could be super passionate about that without being passionate about the work, if you're passionate about what that work leads to. So if it allows for you to go on some minivan adventures with your family, and that's what you're looking forward to, and that's what makes you persist through the 40 hours a week, you could be passionate about, your family and raising children and doing all of that stuff. And, you don't necessarily have to be super passionate about the work. As long as you have passion in life, you can't just be on go all the time. I think that there's moments that call for certain amounts of energy to be spent. And for me as an entrepreneur, like that, you have to be, and as a leader, you have to probably have different levels of passion that you're applying towards your business, towards your vision, because ultimately, what's the definition of a leader? A leader is someone who people follow, and no one's going to follow someone that's not excited about what they're doing. So, I think that there's elements of that as well.
You're talking about a leader, and I asked you to give me one word to describe yourself, and you gave me the word leader. So let's get into leader.
Yeah, I don't even think I
Why
said
do you,
leader. I
why
said
do you,
passion, family,
so,
and knowledge. but I'll take leader too. What was your question?
well, I asked you before we did the interview during our time of emails back and forth before we booked
Oh,
your
okay.
tea time, right? And I asked you to give me one word to describe yourself, and you gave me the word leader.
Uh, well, I feel like I'm very much a leader in every regard, mainly because of that definition that people are following. People are following me with a company. We've raised venture capital for this company, so there's an element of people buying into the vision and thinking that this is going to go somewhere and following the vision. There's the family aspect where raising kids, and they're following your advice on go clean your room, do stuff like that. So I think that a leader is someone who people are willing to follow, and then follow that vision to act upon that vision. And so I think that that's something that, as of the last 5 years or so, I've really kind of stepped into that role and embraced it, and it's a place that I feel pretty comfortable.
So your children must be pretty young because you're telling them to go clean their room still.
One of them's 10. He should know better. Yeah, 10, 7, and 4. So yeah, it's young-ish. Young, almost old enough to know better now.
So Brett, I want to get into. We have a question here about content. Uh, how do we know what is good content and bad content?
Well, I think that search engines are an excellent barometer of what's good content and bad content, because ultimately, does it rank in search engines? And if you wanted to take even one step further back, is it even indexed and discoverable in a search engine? And
Oh,
so the thing that has emerged in 2023 is that the ease of creating content has never been easier. With ChatGPT, with generative AI, you could very much pump out an entire article, copy paste, put it on a website. And so search engines now have this challenge of determining what should we index and what should we display to end users. And so the thing that I think that is happening with search engines is it's no longer a guarantee that if you publish something on your website, that Google or search engines are actually going to index it and consider it to appear. And so I think that, just to get geeky from kind of a search marketing perspective, that's a newer challenge that's never really existed in search, is that's step one, is get your content indexed. Step two is, now can you actually get it to appear for whatever someone's searching for? And so that to me would be the definition of good content. And that's ultimately what we're aspiring to with Featured, is every article that we create, we want it to be the best answer to a question on the internet. And so the very best piece of content is something that appears in what's called a featured snippet. And a featured snippet is on the very top of a search engine result. Usually you'll see this in bigger font that's bolded, that's meant to directly answer the question that you just asked. If you're in a featured snippet, Google recognizes that your content is very clearly answering the question of a searcher, and they're displaying that confidently. So the best content is in a featured snippet. Okay content is you're indexed, and good content means that you're ranking within search engines.
So is that kind of like where you rank on Google? So like if you do a Google search for yourself, if you're on the first page, third page, seventh page.
Exactly. So if you create an article about where pay and benefits is headed in 2023, and you Google pay and benefits trends, where does your content rank on Google's pages?
So, and how do we get on the first page?
That is exactly what I was talking about with keywords, is those two paths to ultimately appearing on the first page. The quickest path is to go to Google Ads and to pay to appear for a certain keyword. And then the harder path is the path where you look to create great content, promote that content, make sure that your website is structurally sound so that a search engine can discover and index your content. And then ultimately, if you're doing those three things better than the other people who currently occupy those positions for that keyword, now you could ultimately achieve that first page ranking. So there's a lot of complexities that go into it. It's very much determinant on what kind of keyword you're targeting, what kind of industry you're in. But the best way to determine it is to go to a search engine, type in a keyword, look and see who's ranking on that first page. And if you're seeing CNN.com and Forbes.com and people who are generally have much more authoritative websites, then you should focus on something that's called long tail keywords. And long tail keywords are basically, for a lack of a better term, keywords that are 3 to 6 words in length that are a little more descriptive about what someone's asking for. So, for example, a customer question, there might be an FAQ that always comes up. For us, it's, how do I know when my answer's selected, or something like that, or like, how do I get free press for my business? That would be an example of a longer tail keyword. And so if you look at the number of searches that happen on a daily basis, about 91% of all searches are long tail keywords, but the average amount of times that keyword is searched per month is like 10 times or less than 10 times. And so collectively, long tail keywords make up the majority of searches on the internet, but they're typically, when you take them individually, a very, very low scale of what that means. So to be an effective small business marketer, you're typically focused on long tail keywords. You're typically focused on creating a large amount of content to create a large blanket amongst all those long tail keywords, and that hopefully they accumulate so that you can increase visibility for your business.
So we have a question here. How do we know when our submissions are featured or if we were selected?
We will notify you via email if and when you're featured, your answer's been featured in an article. We also have a feature within our platform called Track My Answer. And so you're actually able to look and see what the status is of that answer, whether that it's in review, which means that it's currently in progress. Selected means that it's been selected and passed to the publisher and it's awaiting publication, or not selected, which means that unfortunately the answer was not selected for publication and is discarded or published. So those are the different statuses and ways to track.
Oh, I think my mic is back. I had
Yep.
a little, and my mic was off. So we have a question here. Does your platform, does features work with speakers platforms?
So there's not a way to submit audio if that's the question on featured. We do have many speakers that are keynotes that are looking to essentially expand their visibility for themselves. So coaches, consultants, speakers typically love our platform because it gives them an additional platform to stand on and to share their expertise. So no audio at this point in terms of voice submissions, but in terms of personas, keynote speakers are definitely a big one for us.
And where do you see features going in the next 5 years?
So I think that if you look at the overall landscape of search, and traditionally there's been centralized question and answer platforms, and they've traditionally dominated search results. And I think that you're going to see that type of search result get democratized and more redistributed to publishers that actually have authority and expertise about the topic. And so when I think about this, it's like, why does Quora, for example, Quora is the world's largest Q&A site. Why does Quora outrank HR.com today for an HR related question? And the reality is that Quora has the content and HR.com doesn't. And so if you were able to equip HR.com with identical content, now search engines are faced with a decision of, well, who do I rank? Like, do I rank the site with expertise about human resources information, or do I rank a generalized question and answer site? And so really for us, the future of featured is redistributing a lot of that Q&A content over to publishers that want to feature expert insights, and then redistributing that search traffic over to publishers who use our platform. So I think that's the big future for us.
And if anybody has a small business, what plan do you recommend that they go with?
I always recommend to start with our free starter plan. So if you go to featured.com, you sign up, answer up to 3 questions a month, see what happens, experience the value proposition of getting featured, track that, make it a part of your routine, set a little 15-minute reminder on Wednesday morning to answer a couple questions, or sign up for alerts in our system, which will then allow you to input keywords that pertain to your expertise, or you could input target publications of places that you want to get featured on. You'll get email notifications when new questions go live that will, basically email notify you, and you can answer it that way. Answer those 3 questions a month, and then if you ever feel the need to essentially answer more, then you could experiment with one of our paid plans. But for the majority of small businesses out there, the free starter plan is all you need.
And how does somebody submit a question to your platform?
You sign up as a publisher. So if you want content for your website, you can ask a question on featured and get a full-length article ready to be published at no cost. And so, like I mentioned, the cost of creating content today is being quickly driven to zero. On our platform, that's actually a reality. And you could actually just click a suggested question on featured, and then you'll get an article for your review within 2 to 3 weeks that feature insights from experts. So that's another way to utilize our platform.
And do you guys work with publicists?
All the time. Yeah, there's a lot of publicists that are answering on behalf of experts that they represent.
And we have another question here. Do you work with people that write books? Can they use your platform for books?
Tons of authors looking to basically promote their upcoming book. There's tons of different questions that pertain to that book. So if you wrote like a nonfiction book about a particular topic, what a great way to find questions that relate to that topic, and and spread and share your expertise. And basically every piece that you submit has your name, your job title, and your company attached to your answer. And so it's a great way to say Brett Farmiloe, author, book title, and get that out there.
Well, that's really cool. I'm learning so much, and the questions are just coming in. Like, can I get magazines? You don't do any magazine releases or anything like that, correct?
So currently we're just online, but there's quite a few magazines that do post questions and allow people to get publication.
So is there other businesses like yours out there, Brett?
Yeah, there's a few different platforms that are out there. There's a legacy competitor in the space that many people have heard of called Help a Reporter Out,
Oh,
or Harrow. So that's been around since like 2007 and is owned by Cision today. And then there's a couple other platforms out there as well.
so if anybody would like to get involved with you, Brett, how can they reach you?
Brett@featured.com is the email address. Feel free to drop me a line. I'm actually super curious to hear from Miss Liz's fans and user base, so feel free to do that. Otherwise, just go to featured.com and answer questions and see what happens.
And what final message do you have for everybody today?
Um, you know, well, I've got a feeling of gratitude of being on this show for an hour and hanging out. But in terms of messaging, I would just say that you are unique. That's actually one of our core values, and it goes back to this theme that we've touched on quite a bit in the show, which is everyone's an expert in something. That's actually one of the things that one of the biggest hurdles that people get over in using a platform like ours is like, oh, I don't know if I'm like qualified enough to share my expertise on this. And when we're looking at it on our side, we're like, are you kidding me? Like, you've got like 25 years of experience in this one thing. And so I think that self-doubt is one thing that oftentimes people have to combat. So the message that I would send everyone off with is you are unique. You're irrepeatable miracle that can't ever be repeated. And, to go out there and get it. And you could start with a platform like ours. You could start with going to acquire new knowledge, sharing new knowledge. But then in the day, like, you are a unique human being, and express that in however you feel.
Well, I really, really enjoyed my time with you, Brett. And like I said, you look like my cousin. I'm going to send you a
Cousin
picture and you're going
Tony.
to be like, oh my God, she is right.
Cousin Tony.
And Tony, I know you're going to check this out later because he's always checking up on me. And he's going to be, Liz, like, what the heck? And I was like, yeah, I had you, your twin on. Like, you have a twin out there.
We'll do a selfie, but I'm going to be upset if he doesn't look like me.
But it was a real pleasure having you here and learning so much and getting so much from you, Brett, because this is what we need to do, right? We need to open up and share these stories like yours so that people can understand that there's different ways of getting information out there, getting seen and heard. And I really love that phrase of, where did I put it? To give voice to celebrate. I really love that because there's so many voiceless people out there that are self-doubting themselves, and they can just go and answer a couple questions. And it doesn't take long, guys. I did it last night, and I thought it was pretty interesting. Some of the questions were really deep, make you really think, and you have up to 1,000 words that you can put in. So like you can put quite a bit in there, and it makes you really like go within yourself as well. So I want to thank you for that platform. Like it's really, really cool. So check it out. I suggest everybody check out features.com, reach out to Brett and see what you can do and connect. And I'd love to hear the feedback as well from what you got from today's tea time. And if you'd like to know more about these tea times, you can check out Miss Liz's website at www.misslizsteatimes.com. If you'd like to check out Brett's site, Brett, I'll get you to read it out. So for the audio people, they can type it in.
Sure. It's featured.com. FEATURED. Featured.com.
Well, thank you so much. And we will be back tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we'll be talking about Alzheimer's and dementia. We're going to be talking about a lot of cool things. This morning, we talked about clutter. This afternoon, we're talking about features and advertisements. And tonight, we're going to talk about Alzheimer's and dementia and books, writing your story and getting your legacy out there. Brett, I feel that this is your legacy, and I really want to thank you again. Thank you for featuring me and sitting and having tea with me and taking over when I kind of took a time out. So I really want to thank everybody. And I will see everybody at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the third tea time of this week. And then we'll do it all over again next week, same time, same place with 3 new TEAs. And again, I want to thank you, Brett. And I want to thank all of my listeners and viewers and my supporters that have joined me today. I want to thank you all. I seen you popping in. I see all the questions coming in. I hope that we got the answers out. If you have any more further questions for Brett, please send them to me and I will get them to Brett. So until then, I will see you guys at 7 p.m. for the last tea time of this week.
Look at that.